Hi and welcome. Today we have a Toyota Camry 2025. I'm going to be installing the Eibach lowering Pro Kit springs, and it's going to be just a quick little tutorial on how to replace the springs on this vehicle. So if you want to follow along, please stay in tune. So the Camry right now, it's sitting about 28 inches to the top of the fender there, the wheel opening, all the way to the bottom. So this is the factory ride height right now, to 28, and it's the same for the front and rear. I measured both, they're both at 28 inches. So I will show you the afterward, see how many inches it actually drops. So here's the part number for the Eibach springs. This is the Pro Kit once again for the Eibach springs for a 2025 Toyota Camry, and that's the part number of the springs here. And this is what comes inside the kit. You have 4 springs. I believe these are the rear, I think, and these are the front, or either or. I'm not 100% sure yet, haven't looked. So it comes with the springs and some bump stops. This is the right front strut. This would be the front passenger side. This is the strut right here. This is what you're going to be replacing, is the coil spring. And these are pretty much all the tools I needed. You're going to need a ratchet. You might need a breaker bar. Actually, you will need a breaker bar. I did have a pair of needle nose, and that was just to remove this harness clip back here. Once you get this out, it's got a squeeze tabs on the back that you have to squeeze, and it just makes it easier to use that. And a 14 millimeter, that would be for the 3 top struts bolts. And this is a 17, 19, the 19th for the top strut, the center big bolt, and then 22. And I will show you. I'm not going to go through the removal of everything, but I'll point it out right here what you need to remove. You need to take this one, this bolt right here, which is the 14. You take this off, and this whole bracket with the hose comes off. You just move it to one side, and then you take this bolt and this bolt, which are the two, they're 22 millimeter bolts. You take these out, and you pop these bolts out. You slide them out. I was hitting them with a rubber mallet to pop them out, but it also makes it easier if you get a little floor jack and put it underneath the rotor here. But make sure you don't get the dust plate on the back, because you will bend it. So if you do put a jack underneath, just make sure you just get it on the lip here and just support it up enough to be able to wiggle this around. And you just pop these out, and then once these pop out, this will be all free and ready to come out. Oh yeah, you need to remove this sway bar link up here. This is a 17, and also with the jack, you're going to have to jack this up in order to keep this lined up so you can pop it out. Because if you let it fall down, it's going to be too much tension here, and it's not going to want to, the bolt is not going to want to slide out. But that's pretty much it. Let's keep going. So I already loosened these bolts off. So once you get this 14 mil, you take that off. You just move the brake line, just set it to one side, and then this harness, just move it to one side. But the bracket right here, if you can see, has a little finger, and there's a little groove right there. That finger just goes right in there, and it locks it in place, and the bolt will line up. So that's something to keep in mind. So just move that out of the way. And then this is the sway bar loop. I already loosened the bolt, so take the bolt, the nut off. And this one I'm talking about. Right now, it won't come out, because right now the bolt is angled down and there's a lot of tension, and it won't come out. So that's what I was talking about. Just put a little jack on the bottom, and then if you just lift it up until you see it, until you see the bolt there kind of move up, and see it just moved right there, and that should be enough so it straightens out. It's nice and loose and it'll come right out. So that's all you need to do for that part. And then I already loosened these. You'll probably need a breaker bar. They are on there fairly tight, but once they break loose a little bit, they come off pretty easy. They're pretty easy. They come off pretty easily. And then these, I tapped these out with a little mallet and pushed them out. And then once you get these out, this whole assembly will drop down and your lower strut will be dangling. So I got the bracket out, the two big bolts, they came out. So now this is the strut, everything is undone. The harness I was talking about is right here, and then right inside it's got two little fingers, which I use my little needle nose pliers. Just go in there and then squeeze them, which I already did, and then this little harness pops out. You can see the little fingers there, they just pop in there. So then once you got everything on the bottom down here loose, that's all you need on the bottom side. And then on top there's I think these were 17s, 14s. There's 3 14s, but then there's a little 14 over here. This one you don't undo, so you do this one, and then it's like a little triangle. So you take this 14, that one, and this one. I already loosened them up. So then once you take them all off, but before you take the last one off, make sure you underneath you support it. So hold on to it and then take the last bolt off, because if you take it off, the whole strut's just going to fall to the ground and you might damage something. So just make sure that from the bottom you support the strut, or have somebody hold it up for you, and then take all the bolts off, and then once it's loose you can just slide it out from underneath. Alright, now that you got the strut out, springs right here, you need to compress this. I forgot, I don't know if I mentioned it, but you do need a spring compressor. It's a very important tool. You can either buy one, you get them on eBay, or most of the auto parts stores rent these compressors, the spring compressors. So the way this works is these fingers go in here, that one goes in here, that one goes in there, and then you screw it down, and it compresses the spring all the way down, because you cannot remove this without compressing this. Because if you try taking the top, there's a 19 millimeter up here that you have to take off, and then you disassemble the top. But if you take this 19 mil without compressing this, the spring has a lot of tension here, it will pop, and you could get hurt. It could knock all your teeth out. You don't want that. So you do need a spring compressor. That is important. So once you compress the spring, make sure the tension is off the top here. There's a 19 mil bolt. You undo the bolt, and then you can take the top hat off and pull the spring out and put the new one in. But this is probably the most, I would say, the dangerous part of this whole entire job is just this part right here, because there's so much tension. But if you take your time and do it correctly, it should be no problem. Okay, we're ready to compress the spring. I took the 19 out, and this is the part. The 19 went there. That's the 19 was there. And then this is the bearing, the strut bearing. It goes like that. It goes one way. And then when you do put the spring back on, make sure that this end of the spring lines up to where it stops. You can see it right there. There's a mark right here. There's nothing, and then that's the beginning where the coil goes, and then the end right there. So you want to make sure when you put everything back together that lines up. And then on the bottom it's the same thing. And then right here is the bump stop bushing. This just pops out, it slides out. You will need to replace it with the new one. Here's the new one, and this is the old one. Flat side is facing up, and you can see the bump stops. The factory one is taller, the new one is shorter. So the new one does go in. You just slide it in there, it goes back in, and that's all you need to do. And then also when you reassemble everything, the dust boot, this part does need to go in here. It does have to go sucked in inside there. You're gonna have to kind of push it in and squeeze it for it to grab the inside. So that's that part. Let me finish here. So I got the spring out. This is the factory spring. This is the Eibach spring. As far as I can tell, there is no left or right spring. They're just the fronts. You go on either side of the vehicle. Just make sure when you do put it on that the Eibach logo is facing where you can read it and it's not upside down. And then like I said, once you do put it in, the lower part of the spring right there, when you put it in, make sure it matches. There's a little rubber mat here. Sorry, a little rubber mat, and there's an end stop right there, and that's where this part of the coil fits right there, and it rests on there. And also make sure when you're putting it back in that that little rubber mat right here, it does come loose, so just make sure you put it back in its spots. It does have little sorry, the video cut out, but what I was saying is this rubber mat on the bottom of the strut there, just make sure it's lined up properly. It does have alignment tabs there where you'll feel it when it's in the right position, but just make sure it's it doesn't wiggle around. One more thing to be aware of is this is the top of the strut right here. It does have a flat spot right there. So when you do put the top, I don't know if you can see it right there. See how it has a flat spot right there too? So that has to line up with the flat spot there. It can only go in one way. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, everything's assembled. All I have to do is just put the sway bar link. As you can see, it goes in here. Sway bar link is way up there. So once again, just put the jack and just jack the rotor up until those two line up. Should be pretty close. And it goes right in. And just put your nut, and I'm not going to show you how to do the other side because it's exactly the same as this side. So the next thing we'll do the rears. Okay, now it's the rear. This is the passenger rear spring we're going to do. There's the spring. The only tools we're going to need, it's going to be a 17 and a 14 millimeter wrench, 14 millimeter socket, and a mallet, and a long screwdriver or a little pry bar. So the first step you need to do is put a jack underneath the lower control arm, and you're going to jack it up and support that lower control arm. This is the control arm right here. So what this is going to do is you're going to take this 14 millimeter, and then on the back side it's a 17 millimeter nut. I can't get a good view of it, but it's easiest to take the 14 from this side. So loosen this, pull the bolt out. Once the bolt is out, the only thing supporting and keeping that spring is this lower control arm that is being supported by the jack. Lower the jack completely down slowly, and then once it's all the way down, you can pull the jack down out and pull on this lower control arm down, and then the spring will be loose. And you might need that screwdriver or pry bar to pry at the top to try to get it over that little there's a little hump in the middle of the spring up there. As soon as it pops over that, the spring will pop out, and when you put the new one, just put it in reverse. Just look at the marks at the bottom where the spring lined up, like in the front. Just look for the little marks on the bottom and top, and then just put it back in reverse. The rears are not that hard. Okay, we took the bolt out, pulled it out, so the only thing supporting it is the jack. I'm going to lower the jack so you can see how that spring kind of will pop out. The good thing about the rears is you don't need a special tool to compress the spring. So I'm going to lower the jack. I got the jack right here. So now the jack is all the way down. The spring is not compressed anymore. You're just going to have to move the jack out of the way and then just pull that spring out. So right there on the top, there's a little rubber grommet bushing, and this is the top of the spring. I get like a little screwdriver or that pry bar that I was talking about. Just stick it in there, and you gotta pull it towards you and get it over. There's a little hump, a guide hump, I guess, to guide the spring in. So then you just try to pry it over. Now the spring is out, and then there's the little hump I'm talking about, the center right here. The hole of the spring goes up there, and it guides it, keeps it from it aligns it. And this is the little rubber piece that goes there. The spring, it goes on top of the spring, so make sure you put that back on there and put it over there. And then once you get the new one in, it's all in reverse order. It's pretty easy. So these are the measurements after lowering the car. I have driven it maybe 10 miles roughly, and it's probably going to settle a little bit more, but before it was at 28 inches at the top. The top of the wheel arch was at 28. And now it's roughly, I don't know, it looks like 26 3/4 inches. So it dropped it like 1 1/4 inches in the front. And let's see how much the back is. And this is the rear. Before it was at also 28 inches, and now it looks like it's down to about 27 inches at the top of that wheel arch. So the rear looked like it dropped it like 1 inch. The front was like 1 1/4 inches roughly. So that's how much of a drop you get with these Eibachs. So this is what the final look, what it looks like with the Eibachs. It did drop it quite a bit. The ride, the little bit I've driven, it did make it a little bit more bumpier and a little bit more harsh, but that's expected when you put lowering springs on a vehicle. It gives it a little bit more performance. I did notice the handling on it is a little bit more crisp. I wouldn't say it was a lot more, but I wasn't really going for the performance wise. I was trying to get rid of that gap between the tires and the fender, and that seemed to take care of that. Only a little bit of time will tell if I'm happy with this setup or not, but for now it's working. If I have any updates, I'll let you guys know. Thank you.